Greetings, everybody. This is Brother Ron Herb, also known as R2C2H2 Artist. You are watching We All Be TV, News Free Dixie for the 21st century. Can you dig it? And welcome, boys and girls, scholars and laymen, to another wonderful, entertaining education or edutaining edition of We All Be News Free Dixie for the 21st century. I'm your host for this empowerment segment, Brother Ron, also known as R2C2H2 Artist. A lot going on, and scheduled to have the Honorable Judge Joe Brown, but he runs late a lot. And I don't even know, I'll have him on this segment, but we'll probably get him on in the very near future, if not this segment. But I think it's very important that I go on right now. All things considered, been one very highly unusual week, even for 2022 standards, but a very highly unusual week. And let's talk about that. Let's digest. Before we digest, let's dissect, and then we can digest. And then we can figure out, like in the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., where do we go from here? So, yeah, this has been an interesting. Okay, Judge, he's having some tech difficulties, but we'll hold it down for the judge. We'll make it warm for him. It's hot outside, but we'll make it warm for him. A lot to talk about. First and foremost, the situation on Monday with Donald Trump, that was highly, highly, highly unusual. What happened that never happened to an American president in U.S. history, to have your home raided by the feds. Never happened. Didn't even happen to Richard Nixon. Matter of fact, from my understanding, the day that the feds raided Trump's Florida residence, Mar-a-Lago, is the anniversary date of Richard Nixon resigning from the White House because of Watergate. And I keep on thinking, if Richard Nixon was president during this time period and Watergate happened in this time period, not only would he had beat the impeachment, but he probably would have ran and won a third term. That's how things have turned since those times back in the 70s, how the world turned, how America is going right now. But regardless if you like, love, hate, tolerate, or can't stand Donald J. Trump, Agent Orange number 5, or Agent Orange 45, that's still, like, if you believe in civil liberties, dignity, all that stuff, that still was uncalled for, because they claimed that he had sensitive information that should have been kept with the National Archives or whatever, but they almost had 2 years to get that so-called sensitive information. And really what it looks like is that they are very much afraid of Donald Trump running again in 2024. And also you look at his political capital has really built up since he has been out the Oval Office. And like, you look at, like, the media is weird to me, because you see these like clickbait headlines. Person refuses to kiss Trump. You watch the video, and I even talk about that swimmer who came up against the trans athlete who came in the second place, the woman athlete swimmer. They spoke at a function. Trump introduced her at the function, and the headline claimed that the women turned them down on a kiss. And really, if you look at the video, you can't, it doesn't look like that to me. I mean, at first, when you look at the headline, oh, the woman that's disrespected Trump, or she basically stopped him in his tracks, but she didn't do that. Like she probably was nervous, energy, whatever. Walked towards the microphone. She was kind of nervous or whatever she was doing. She had her jitters, but I don't think that necessarily she was like she turned down a kiss from President Trump. They were really reaching on that one. And like it's funny when people think about Trump, they really do got a they lose all logic with Trump. Because I really can't overstand it because it's like if you look at how people treat Trump, to me, that's how people should treat Biden, especially if you're a black person. The way some black people treat Trump is how they should be treating Biden in terms of the policies he helped to spearhead and implement in his 50 plus years as a so-called public servant and a politician. You look at the fact that rather quietly among so-called black grassroots media and even black people in general, the passing of our freedom fighter and now righteous ancestor Albert Woodfox on August 4th last week. People talk about Brittany Griner. People want to talk about Russia and China and how they treat their people with lack of humanity. But this brother spent solitary confinement in America, land of the free, home of the brave, supposedly. That's all suspect at this point. This man spent 43 years in solitary confinement because he tried to fight for the dignity of prisoners, because him and his comrades, who were Black Panthers, who was known as the Angola 3, down in Angola, one of the harshest prisons in all of North America, because they was fighting to suppress sex slavery and prison rape and fighting for dignity in the cafeteria, organizing and politicizing prisoners of war behind enemy lines. They were punished for that. And none of us said anything. We had 2 terms of Barack Obama. Nothing was done for these brothers. I had a chance on this platform to interview Robert King. He was the first one to go home out of the Angola 3. He spent almost 30 years in solitary confinement. Allegedly, they were accused of murdering a correctional officer down in Angola, but even his widow, from my research, did not believe the story. There was virtually really no evidence tying them to the murder of this correctional officer. He, the correctional officer, like the prisoners, were just pawns in a bigger game, in a bigger scheme. But he wrote his memoirs, Albert Woodfox, right? And I think Robert King, who I interviewed, he wrote some memoirs because he came out in 2001. Had a chance to talk to him, and I asked him, like, how did you not go crazy with 29 years in solitary confinement? And he told me, brother, what makes you think I'm not crazy? So you got this going on in America, but y'all worry about what's going on overseas, but y'all forgetting about cutting the grass in your own backyard, but you worry about somebody else's front yard, but you're not cutting the grass in your own backyard. So without further ado, boys and girls, scholars and laymen, we are here in this moment, this hour, waiting for the one and only, truly beyond category, the Honorable Judge Joe Brown. How you doing, sir?
Hey, what's going on, young man? How you doing?
All right, man. I just like
all right.
This week is weird. It's weirder than most weeks
I'll
of this year. I
manage.
mean, this is a crazy week. And I'll just think about what the Judge Joe Brown think about what the hell is going on here. It was this fire in the kitchen. And I just want to get your, I mean, it was good seeing you last week at Chuckles unexpectedly so. But I just had to get your mind on that, Judge, because I know you got a problem with the N-word. And them brothers were showing you flowers, giving you flower, but they were using that word very like loosely. So I was getting your feedback on that, how you felt. You didn't go up on stage and slap nobody or pistol whip anybody, but you was a cool, calm customer.
No. Let's see, that N-word has a meaning. Everybody's aware of the negative meaning. When you start saying, well, I'm trying to make it friendly and diffuse it, no, you're not. See, every time you say the word or you hear the word, your subconscious is aware of what it means. So when you start using it, you're saying negative things to yourself through your subconscious, even if consciously you're trying to say ain't no big deal, it's just what we call ourselves.
Yes, sir. But you didn't, unlike Will Smith,
See,
you kept your
it's
composure.
got some inherently negative things. Oh yeah, I do that. The deal is that you win some, you lose some. Don't start a controversy that is not appropriate to the forum in the venue. So I knew those words were going to be used when I showed up there. So I'm there. Kind of win in Rome, but sometimes you try to reform Rome.
Yeah, but Will Smith could learn a
If
lot
that
about.
makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. But Will Smith could learn a lot from you, how you kept your composure, and you was like, you cool.
Well, I'm not Will Smith. See, Will Smith is 50 something and he's devoted his entire adult life to fantasy and make believe. That's not me. I've been dealing with the real world. See, so there is a difference.
Yes, sir. But one thing we can agree upon from last night, we all agree that you should be mayor of Memphis, Tennessee in 2023. We are definitely on we on the roll call for that, Judge. People, they be asking me like, how can they get involved with your campaign? I mean, I know you haven't officially announced anything yet, but
okay, let me say what I'm doing. You have to file these treasury reports periodically. So there are a whole lot of people that are filing after this last election cycle. So there's no point in getting caught up in setting up a treasury and getting official and then having to file in a few weeks and go through all of the drama that entails. And also, we don't want to set off the wrong people too early to start coming back with a counter. Now, I'm going to be filing in a little bit. We'll get our petition, we'll get the signatures, and we'll go from there. So it is what it is, and there's some kinks to work out. You have to set up your organization. You have to see what the field looks like, and you have to see what's going on. Now, we still have this issue with these corrupted election machines that they use one more time. And I have a sneaking suspicion based on my sources that they told everybody to back off on the hacks so they could still have them in play for November when they'd like to use them to influence the midterms on the federal and perhaps state level. That said, there's also conflicting information out there to the effect that this was the last election cycle where they are using these corrupted machines that they've had in place for 22 years. We'll see. And there are things like down here at this river, we need to sink some hydroelectric turbines down on the Memphis side of things and get free electric power, which would mean very low priced public transportation. Industry goes where the energy is, not where the raw materials are. So we could bring a lot of industry here in Memphis. We could sell the surplus from New Orleans to Louisville to Chicago, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, North Carolina, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and we could make a profit out of it. And we wouldn't have to pay TVA. We could get money from TVA so that we could input into their net so that they could get reduced cost. We have this Ford factory up here in Mason. We have a Cadillac factory in West Tennessee, both of which are going to be making electric vehicles. We have Beretta Arms in this part of Tennessee. We have a number of sources that would like to get the least expensive shipment options they have. And we have a lot of barges that are empty going back down the Mississippi to New Orleans to get put on ocean going barge transports, and they ought to be filled with products and merchandise from here. It can be taken back across the Atlantic. You get to the Mediterranean, drop the rear hatch on these transports, and the barges are right there ready to go into Europe with the electric vehicles and industrial products that can come from this area. Keep going through the Mediterranean to the Suez Canal and then get into Asia. Meanwhile, a lot of products that go from Asia over the vast Pacific Ocean to California could come around through the Indian Ocean, through the Suez Canal, through the Mediterranean on these barges and transports, come up, go up the Mississippi, unload in Memphis, where you're right at the nexus, the hub of the North American transportation system. We could bring in barge traffic from Europe that's loaded up in Europe, put on these same barge going transports as they already are, but in a lower volume than they would like, and bring them up here to Memphis, to the world's largest barge unloading facility, where they would be run through customs. That facility is located on President's Island. They've been trying to get in here for several decades, but they're getting blocked because there are big fish in a medium-sized pond that would be very small fish in a very large pond if that happened. This could be the Mecca for the South. When we had the agrarian economy and cotton was king, Memphis used to be the center of that industry. They used to say the South started at the front door of the Peabody Hotel and went to New Orleans. Well, there were some things that were negative associated with that agrarian economy. But for the new industrialized world, this ought to be the place. There's no smog inversion layer here. There's plenty of land to expand into. There is a readily available workforce that needs to be utilized. There are some things to make this a very upscale community, a big upscale area where the children and grandchildren don't want to leave. They want to stay or come back. We have a lot of things we could do. We could reform the police department so it's under civilian control, not civilian oversight, which has been proved to be ineffective. We could model it on the Pentagon, where we have a civilian Secretary of Defense, one for the Army, Navy, Air Force, etc. And we need the same thing where we have primacy of a civilian director, a sub-director over uniform patrol, sex crimes, homicide, property crimes, traffic, etc., you name it. That should be the case. We must implement some civilian communications so that we have block captains, neighborhood captains with direct access into the police communication net so that information can be timely and quickly furnished. We need to go out and recruit youth so that those who are on the verge of becoming full-fledged thugs can quickly flip over into becoming the leadership that, interestingly enough, when you give that kind of kid something to be in charge of or something constructed to do, they become zealots about it and no longer riffraff, cut-ups, and F-ups. So we need to do something about that. We've gotten rid of that corrupted, nasty regime down at this embarrassing circus known as the Memphis and Shelby County juvenile court, now that Judge Sugarman has gotten elected. And we got, and we got rid of that evil, corrupted witch in the DA's office finally. So that ends a bad streak. So maybe we can do something about reforming the justice system in Memphis. When we get control from somebody with some kind of insight, vision, and not a lazy sucker running around trying to coast like the current fool in the mayor's office is, with absolutely no ideas and just simply endorsing the corruption that is going on, then maybe we can start making this place become what it ought to be. Now, there are a lot of programs that can be put in place. One of the most primal things is, for God's sake, who the hell is going to fix these damn potholes?
Right.
I mean, everybody I know has got automotive damage because of the sorry condition of these streets. We have global warming, some say, and we don't have any harsh winters anymore. But unlike 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, when we did, well, everything breaks down in the 1 or 2 days when it snows out of the year. and people slide off of the roads and they get killed, injured, there's property damage, and nobody has the gumption to get sand and gravel and trucks ready to roll to deal with making the streets safe. Nobody seems to pay attention because too much of the tax dollar goes to subsidizing the people into the big five. That is acquisition of real estate interest, management of the real estate interest, development thereof with no concern to the healthy program and plan for the city, because there is no plan. And then they're into construction and construction material supply when they bribe or extort or whatever they do the city council, so the people that are into these things get paid by the taxpayers to build projects we don't need, and then get allowed to run these projects at the city expense. That's not private enterprise when the people pay for a business program or business or not industrial, realty development, and it's for the benefit of a select few who get the money out of it, not us. That's got to stop. So we have some things that we can do, and we have great opportunity to do them, but we don't. Memphis is the biggest tax contributor to the county board of education, but is anybody overseeing, giving oversight to the city's benefits for being part of that, what I call scam? No, they're not. We have 72% of the student body coming from Memphis. We only have 2 votes on the Board of Education, and the 28% have 6 votes on the Board of Education. What the hell is going on here? Something needs to be done. We need some reform, and I'm glad that without apparent corruption in these voting machines, we saw such a bloodletting in the judiciary, because frankly, some of the people on the bench didn't need to be there.
I'm a judge. I mean,
we have some changes, but we didn't sweep heavily enough. And there are still some sore points in the criminal justice system that needed addressing, but it's 8 more years before you can do anything about that. But it's a start, and we need to keep going it, because we have this thing where we don't pay attention to what's going on. And we walk up to the polls in total ignorance of most of the candidates who are on the ballot, and we get a sample ballot handed to us and we vote that. And a lot of times we don't need to trust those sample ballots. I'll give you an example. The late Joe McCarty, who was judge of Division 8 of criminal court, was a psycho. He kept getting the black bloc vote over and over again, and he had formerly been Grand Dragon for the Klan and the head of the White Citizens Council. And justice was not administered in Division 8 of criminal court, but he kept getting the black bloc vote election after election because of these ballots. He paid off certain people a lot of money so that they put him on their ballot. But you see, that kind of thing's got to stop. The current occupant of Division 8 is not the brightest bulb on a shelf in talking about the delivery of injustice. Whoa, white, black, brown, red, or yellow, you are not getting a fair deal, due process of law when you go through there. I'm sorry. And you've got some other people in play. You've got the commercial appeal, Channel 3, most of Channel 5, and part of Channel 13, all controlled by the same family who does not have our interests at heart. So we've got to do something about that. We need people to come in, and when the licenses for these major channels come up, they need to bid on them. They need to show their influence. We need to do something about taking control. the funds that the city, the county, the courts, the agencies put into what used to be First Tennessee Bank, give them great cash deposits, and that cash deposit situation results in a negativity for ordinary middle-class people, small businessmen, and the difference, because under federal law, a bank can only have accounts that are backed up with a certain percentage of cash. So we put it all into one bank. It used to be First Tennessee, but now it's First Horizon. Guess what? It not only is no longer a Memphis bank, it's not a Tennessee bank anymore, and it isn't even a U.S. bank. It's chartered in Canada. So why are we giving a Canadian bank all of our deposits, which prevent the ordinary person, white, black, brown, red, yellow, from getting lines of credit, loans, business advances, business financing, when it is restricted to the big group in that, well, that's small group in the big five things I was talking about. See, we need to change that. We have regions, which is big with deep pockets, is exploiting the situation. Wells Fargo came in because they have the deep pockets. We have Bank of America that's come in, and that's over the last 2 decades or so. So they come in because they have deep pockets. They've got substantial revenues that they have that provide the percentage points for very large accounts. But they have different interests in mind than what the small businessman or the homeowner or the guy who's trying to make it has. So we don't get full benefits. We can change that. There's a lot of things that are on the table that you will not get if you keep on with the same old, same old. And we've got some nobodies who are interested, whose main claim to fame is that they've sold out, taken bribes, they're extorted because they don't want to come out of the closet, even though it's the 21st century. And we get no government that is worth a damn. Memphis has been found to be number 3 on the list for the highest violent crime rate in America. It's Detroit, St. Louis, and Memphis, in that order. Memphis, inefficiently and most poorly run large city in America. So, I mean, that needs to change. And what is with these people where they think they hold an office for their own personal benefit and not the benefit of the citizenry? Who's going to work with the youth? Who's going to set up man-up programs and start dealing with rationalizing good behavior instead of wrong behavior? Who's going to make up for the lack of home training that these kids have, where there are no exemplars because the kids look at what's going on government-wise, not everybody, but too many of them are worse crooks than the worst thugs you've got running around trying to do criminal activity on the streets. Somebody needs to do something about this. And too many people running for office look at these little pitiful small salaries they get paid as a way to become rich because of the influence they can wield to get things done for them that shouldn't be done for elected officials. We don't need that. We need somebody in there for at least a couple of terms to straighten things out and lay a proper foundation so Memphis can move from the 14th largest city in America up to where New York, LA, Chicago, Dallas, and Houston are right now, and Miami and Detroit. But instead of being corrupt hellholes like they are, they can have something going so they can be a beacon of leadership and prosperity and public peace.
Now Joe, I got to ask
so
you.
we can, not they.
Yeah, but I got to ask you about the voting thing. I think it's problematic because I went to vote and like it's 37 pages too long, and you don't know most of the people anyway. Because really, like the Cadillacs of the election was a DA race. Everybody's paying attention to the DA race because that stays in the news cycle. Amy Ryrick and the Mulroy and all that stuff. But like the judges, nobody knows. Like people living like they trying to survive, and people have time to always try to figure out who's friend or foe. And
Well, maybe what we need to have is a lottery.
okay.
And what happens is some judges get longer terms than others, and some have to run for re-election. So you stagger that so it's not so overwhelming. That's one solution, and that can be taken care of. Now, the other thing you're talking about here is we still have to do something about paying attention to who's on these ballots because nobody is.
Right.
The commercial appeal, channel 3, 5, and 13, they don't. And if you give them advertisement, well, the advertisement doesn't necessarily hurt the candidate, but it keeps the station or the entity from bad mouthing you in favor of the other guy. That's the real benefit to advertising. Now, this DA's race, I take some credit for that because I started exposing this corrupt witch they've had in there for so damn
You've been
long.
consistent with that.
She was a corrupt person and tried to fix cases in my courtroom when I was on the bench, or at least one time she did before I put a stop to it. So I've known she's wrong. She's been held to be the most corrupt DA in America. And there are 14 times where appellate courts in this state or the state Supreme Court have held that she was engaged in prosecutorial misconduct. But guess what? Every single one of those defendants involved was white. And 95% of the people she chooses to prosecute in this county are black. So what's that say about all of the ones that slipped between the cracks or through the cracks that didn't even get recognized? Now, that being the case, something needs to be done to change this. So I started it in process. I pointed out her corruption. I didn't get elected, but when I got benefit of discovery on a nascent lawsuit that got dismissed on a technicality, the experts we brought in said, hey, this was a fix going on. And when I ran, there were two candidates, me and the Were-Witch. But there were 5 candidate numbers in the machines, and 84,000 votes went to 3 non-existent candidates. And that's commensurate with the hack that they have available, that California published an online pamphlet about 15 years ago on how to work, just to discourage anybody else from using these machines. So we are the only county in the United States of America that still uses these corrupted machines. That being the case, while we whoopee, the advertisement for the machines that's on the state website about election machines says one of the advantages of these machines is that you can access the entirety of the election results as they are pending from any one machine. Well, when the Justice Department returned its findings several times over the last 16 years, they said this feature of the machines, the access to the vote count from any one machine, allows the hacking of all of the machines from any one machine. And 14 years ago, they put the money up to replace all of them. And now the county commission is saying we're going to have to raise revenues to afford to replace these machines. Well, what the hell did you do with the money that the feds already put up to do so? Or did you misappropriate the money? And does somebody need to do some federal time? See, perhaps we don't need another Tennessee Waltz, a sting operation to set up corruption. We need a Memphis boogie or a Memphis hip hop to catch it. And see, we still have 28,000 untested rape kits thanks to the witch in office. And they're untested because, well, there were some friends of hers that were protected because they didn't get caught up to their wrongdoing. And even though a lot of these untested rape kits come from Collierville, Germantown, Bartlett, Millington, Arlington, why is it the city of Memphis has to pay for the whole thing? The county commission authorized $7.2 million to be paid out 8 years ago for these untested rape kits. And it was supposed to be done by, well, let's see, a New York firm that's out of state, and attorney Ronnie Coleman was supposed to get paid a heap of money for vetting them. And then they got another 5-year extension because they hadn't completed it. And TBI has been coming in for the last few years saying, we don't understand what the problem is. We'll test them for free in 30 days. See what's going on here. And there are a lot of crimes that are unsolved. There are a lot of crimes that have been solved, but the results have been suppressed because of the witch in the office down there. Glad she'll be turned out, kick her to the wayside, and somebody needs to go after her for unethical attorney misconduct, which is also apparent by what she did. She's not the DA any longer, so it's safe to go get on her ass. So, yeah, there might be some ways to straighten things out.
Yeah.
We can do another thing, for example. The Second Amendment is what it is. The city can authorize the development of various and sundry community-based militias so that you can get veterans, retired first responders, good citizens to go through training and assist the police in patrolling their neighborhoods. That would give people the opportunity to build up equity in their governance and keep them from feeling so helpless in the face of just rampant crime and public disorder. We could take the city back. There are ways of doing that. But if you don't have any thoughts and your main preoccupation is how can I get something stuffed in my bank account secretly by not giving a damn about the ordinary people, white, black, brown, red, yellow in this town, and just being worried about the so-called VIP crowd or the country club set, you know, that's something that could be changed. Why don't we have a situation where the police engage in contractual relations with the juveniles they arrest, and on agreement that the juveniles will go through counseling, vocational exposure, academic enhancement, and if they get through the 6 weeks, 6 months, 1129, then charges simply aren't proffered, and you keep them out of the system, and you have an incentive for people to do right. And I do have a little expertise in that. On 10 years that I was subject to a study, the statewide recidivism rate for felons was 80%, and in my courtroom it dropped down to just 18. Now, there is a methodology that works, and they've been using it from the Roman Republic all the way through to the present, and we seem to have forgotten about it. But I know, some other people know, so you and I have discussed this. When we get these lists of so-called experts to consult on such and such, this, that, and the other problem, you and I look at them and say, who the hell are these folk? They don't know a damn thing. Why don't they talk to so-and-so or such and such who have demonstrated an ability to do something?
Oh, that's a good question. Judge, I want to shout out to Kara Dangerous Talk. Thank you. Subscribe to her channel. A lot of good stuff. Kara Dangerous from Mactown, Macon, Georgia. Very good sister. But also, I gotta get back to the voting thing because, like, I went to vote. I early voted, and I wanted to select a general ballot. I didn't want to use the Democrat ballot or the Republican, but they told me that a lot of the things will be left off on the general ballot, and I didn't get a chance to vote for anybody for the board, for the education board. They were out there campaigning, but it's weird. And then you got the governor primaries on the same ballot as the general ballot. I mean, all this kind of stuff. Why
I selected general ballot.
You did?
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Democrat, Republican. Yeah. See, when I walked in my precinct, they had a little interesting sign up there.
Mm-hmm.
You may select the Republican or Democratic ballot, or if you are an independent, that is the same as the general election ballot. So I already knew that, so I selected the general election ballot, which allowed you not to be confined to a party primary. Now, some people I know who have a bit of political savvy said, I'm picking a primary because in my area, I am not going to vote for these folk in the general election come November. But I would like to make the opposition less dangerous by voting in Democrat or Republican primary, because in my area, selection as the party candidate is equivalent to winning the election. Like in the 8th district, if you are Republican and you want Republican, that's going to be the current incumbent for the Republican Party for the House of Representatives. If you are in the 9th district, which is 92% black, you're going to wind up with Steve Cohen as your congressman. So you effectively got cut off of the general election by being forced to make that selection.
Mm-hmm. I just think, but like, why would they have like the governor primary doing like? I mean, we had our primaries back in May. Well, I guess the Shelby County thing. It's like it's just so much stuff going on. It's kind of confusing for just the layperson to try to say how many times we're going to vote this year. They saying this is the general election vote, but you saying that we vote also in November. But then you had primaries back in May, but the governor primaries was this past August the 4th. I mean, like, why are they confusing? Like, what's the point of telling people to vote? And most of the people on the ballot I didn't know, like the judges you were talking about, the way they put together the language of the ballot is confusing for the person who might not have an extensive educational background. You
Well, let's
know what
put
I'm
it
saying?
this
Like they
way.
like what's going on?
Let's put it this way. I've been involved in this for 50 years. That's a half century.
Yes, sir.
I'm a retired lawyer, a retired state judge. I didn't know anybody on the damn ballot for these positions. I actually spent 2 nights researching this stuff and asking people I knew, people I'd mentored. I said, who the hell are these people?
I don't feel bad. Okay, good.
I don't know. You know, so even the lawyers don't know.
Jesus.
And you had a lot of people that were running that I always wanted to be a judge, but you're only 32, 33 years old. What the hell? You don't even know how to wipe your butt when it comes to law. Are you wise and experienced in the law and the ways of? So what's going on here? Who are you?
Right.
And
Okay.
what the hell have you done for this community leading up to that? You know, what have you done? Did you file anything pro bono? Did you take any cases that somebody needed to take on for the benefit of the citizenry? Or are you just, I need a job? And too often it's, I need a job. And 2 or 3 people that got elected to judge couldn't even make it practicing law. 1 or 2 of them didn't even have a law office. They practiced out of their home, you know, so they needed the money. And who the hell are you? You didn't even have, you mad because I endorsed somebody that I've known for 35 years and always struck me as fair? And, you know, now you want me to endorse you? Hell, I have never even heard of you.
Right.
You know, what is your problem? Or what do you stand for? Or tell me what you've done. Or like you got Harris, who ran for county mayor, got reelected again, but he and his wife are law professors out at Memphis State, University of Memphis. They work 15 hours a week. That law school encourages its law professors to work pro bono. Have they taken a damn pro bono case to help out the people in the county? No. Have they done a damn thing for their people? No. You've got some that have an interest. I'll pick one of them, Van Turner. He's got to explain how the hell he and Tammy Sawyer down here on this county commission got this private resolution passed to sell the park wherein Nathan Bedford was located and Jeff Davis was located, the other park. Well, okay, fine. Great idea. Privatize it so you can get rid of the offending statutes, if that's what your point is. But then after you did that, being a lawyer, you set up a conflict of interest by creating a private corporation and another resolution to sell it to that corporation without bid. So now one of them has got a half brother that's storing the two statues for $5,000 a month. And remember, this is going on 5 years. Okay, you got this one down here whose private corporation is being offered tens of millions of dollars for the acquisition of this park next to the Metal Museum on the bluff where Jeff was located, and the one down on Union where Nathan was located. And what did they pay? They got, without bid, an opportunity to pick up each of those parks for $2,500. That's tens of millions of property that the city got defrauded out of. What about this stuff down on Beale Street, where you have people who have the primary leases that ran out 30-some years ago that aren't even paying $1,000 a month to the city to rent those properties, and they are subleasing them for $5,000, $10,000, $30,000, $35,000 a month? Why is there not a confiscation of those leases under eminent domain, with a requirement that any new leaseholder actually operate a club, jacking up what's paid from the few $100s to what it's worth, and having as an absolute requirement, you hold the lease as long as you operate the club? See, let's spread this around. I mean, I appreciate Elvis Presley being the second largest tourist attraction in America behind the White House, but hell, what about Stax?
Right.
What about that? You go in someplace and you see Jerry Lee Lewis and Elvis Presley. What about all of the rest? You know, you get the Pyramid, $85 million boondoggle that we paid for, so the big five folk can get their 85 million out of it, and we give it away to Bass Pro that has one of the worst equal employment records in the country. So they get an $85 million facility, and then we pay for putting the restaurant at the top that never did get put up there, elevators up the corner, and they get benefit of that because they're supposed to hire 120 employees. Hell. You go out to their facility on Sycamore and I-40, they've only had 2 black employees there for years. One's the janitor and one's the maid. Wow, we whoopee. That's who this majority black city turns everything over to. Who needs to be whipped out of town for that? That thing, Beale Street Landing, down there on Riverside at Beale, on the other side, the west side of the railroad tracks. We spent $35 million to build that thing so somebody could contract to run a gift shop, bar, and grill. $35 million. The city was supposed to get 4 to 6% of the net, which, by the way, we never get. The accountants involved always zero out, so we get nothing. We just pay for the construction of the facility and pay for the operating cost of the facility to get a non-existent, not to ever happen percentage. And this guy bailed on it. So now we're stuck with a $35 million facility we can't do anything with because the city by law can't operate a bar. Okay, so what we get out of it is a giant jungle gym. See, stuff like that is just ridiculous. they're talking about building a new movie theater downtown at taxpayers' expense for certain interests to operate. They're talking about running a corridor from Beale Street down to where the Club Paradise is. Yeah. And the developers who also got the contracts to tear down the public housing and build the low-income housing that they got paid to build, and they get allowed to operate at a small percentage of the income. They want to build down there and take over the Paradise. If you go down there and look at it, this is almost a historic landmark. Are they helping out Black development? No, they're trying to squeeze it so this group can get control. And immediately to the west, there is a 40-acre field. It's grass. Somebody is paying $1 a year to reserve this thing, and the city is paying for the upkeep and the grass keeping. What the hell is that supposed to be about? You go down a little bit further west of that, there's an elementary school. They turned it over to a private educational facility for $1 damn a year. It's right across the street from Booker T. Washington High School. You go immediately north of it, there's another what used to be public school that got turned over to a private educational facility for $1 damn a year. And when you look at it in the morning, they've got all of these non-community people who are teachers, and they have to send squad cars over there because the little teachers don't feel like it's safe walking from the parking lot inside the doggone school buildings. So what is wrong with this picture? This is a situation where, like it was reported last month, there is incompetent, inept, inefficient, and corrupted city management. And that needs to change so our children and grandchildren, and if you're young enough, you yourself don't want to figure out how the hell to get out of Memphis as quickly as you can.
And also, Judge, I want to say, like, the remains of Force was finally moved to the National Confederate Museum location in Columbia, Tennessee, along with the horse statue. So I think they moved all that last year to Columbia, Tennessee.
Yeah, they did.
National Confederate Museum.
They did, but there's still all this time. What happened with this?
Yeah.
See, what happened with it? It's tax dollars gone, and we got no benefit from it.
Yes, sir.
But you see, there's a statute of limitations, but it hadn't run yet. You know what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying.
Where is the corruption?
Where is it? Well, you follow, they say follow the money, right? You follow the paper trail.
Where is it? Follow the money. Why do they have Birch, Porter, and Johnson representing the County Board of Education when isn't there supposed to be a legal department and a board attorney?
Well, I don't know, that Board of Education right now with the superintendent, with George Ray.
Why is that the case?
Are you right, sir?
See, this isn't when Doc Harrington was running the place. That's 31 years ago, 32 years ago. So, it's interesting to see how things have been coasting downhill. It ain't as good as it used to be.
Well,
and it's not nearly as good as it should be.
What's your thoughts about term limits? Are you for or against term limits?
Well, there are virtues to each position. Most of the time, the people that get elected these days, they don't have a political science or law background. They have not come from a field where they have administrative or executive experience. And by the time they're limited out, they just found out what the hell they were supposed to be doing in the first damn place. That's one thing, but it does keep down people from becoming too entrenched and becoming too big to get a hold of. So we need to do something somewhere down the line about reassessing it. Now, I don't want more than 2 terms. I might not even want more than 1 term, just something to sweep the trash and take the garbage out. So we need to get some good habits in place, because this could be the mecca for this part of the country, the mecca for the New South, or an exemplar of how things ought to be run in an urban area for the rest of the 21st century. This place is located it's located where geography dictates something that is not duplicated anywhere else on the North American continent. It's where the main transcontinental highway, I-40, from which everything else branches off, runs across the biggest river on the continent, the Mississippi, and that is the nexus of North American distribution. That's why FedEx is here, UPS is here, the bulk mail center is here, and why usually Memphis Airport ships the largest commercial tonnage in the world. Sometimes it flip-flops with Hong Kong. So why is that? That's because of the geographical location. When it was just Native Americans in this area, it still had the same significance. That's why it was where the agrarian South began, and it's why the American Industrial Revolution will be located here if someone has the vision, the drive, the acumen, the common sense, and the uncorrupted integrity to do something about it. Now, we have a choice. I'm not going to be alive that much longer. Hell, I would like my progeny to come back here. But right now, there's no reason. They are both of the opinion that they need to get the hell as far the hell away from here as they can. Mm-hmm. So see, people like you need to be the leadership, but somebody's got to clean house so you can be leaders without having to deal with the ramifications of corruption. See, I know the skeletons in the closets, and hell, I know the graveyards that are out there.
That's all right. Well, I gotta. I know it's like it's local stuff is getting over like some of the people heads. Like we got people from all over the country tuning in right now. They say who's the witch he talking about? It's the DA right now, District Attorney Amy Wyrick. It's known as Amy Werewitch, according to Judge Joe Brown.
Yeah, well, it's exemplar of what's happened. Soros apparently has controlled too many district attorneys. I suspect he was behind her, but let me give you what I'm talking about. Back in the mid-1990s, when I was a criminal court judge, a certain prosecutor came in my courtroom asking if I would accept a transfer because the usual courtroom she was assigned to was in trial. So I said, okay. So she said it was a minor drug case. Mm-hmm. And the recommendation was that the female co-defendant have the charges against her dropped and the male co-defendant be allowed to plead guilty to 1 year upfront probation, unsupervised probation, and have their record expunged at the end of the period. All right. I said I'd hear it. I didn't hear any drugs mentioned. She wanted me to do it right then. I said, no way, we're going to have a probation hearing. We had the hearing, no drugs involved. I had one of my bailiffs, after I reset it a couple of days, go get the captain over Metro Narco. His 1 year sentence, 4.5 kilos of pure heroin, 4 kilos of pure cocaine. That could be cut into several thousand pounds worth of street value coke, 3,000 hits of crystal meth. Thousands of hits of crystal meth, thousands of hits of quaaludes, even LSD, for God's sake. And it was the narcs had been working on the case for 3.5 years. They had a good solid bust. They had people wired for sound. The final raid into seizure and arrest was when several people were wired for sound, so they heard it going down. And they seized more than $750,000 in cash, and this was a minor drug offense, 1 damn year suspended up front when that gets you life in a federal penitentiary and a minimum of 45 years in the state of Tennessee. What kind of mockery of justice is that by somebody who's holding themselves out to being the chief law enforcement officer of the county? And all of the people they've had to let out of jail, it started off, the first one in 2000 was this DA and her then husband were trying to get this prime property in the developmental area of the local airport, okay? The Supreme Court just dismissed the indictment for hopeless corruption on the case and questioned why she wasn't found in contempt for perjury, since she was asked directly about it, and a number of other things. And how dare she try to use her position as a prosecutor to obtain private interest, monetary gain, by putting an innocent person in the penitentiary. See, that was 2000, before she even became the elected DA. And see, that spread across the country, and we can't have any change in the violence we've got out in the neighborhoods, the corruption we've got out in the neighborhoods, the lawlessness we have in our cities, when the DA's office is essentially corrupted and incompetent. Now, that's what it stands for on a national level, and it does stand for the proposition that the people, when they finally get fed up and tired of something, with something, they can make a difference. It also indicates, since the local news media, MSM, mainstream media, was just so in love with her, that you ought not base what you do on mainstream media. Get out there and get independent. The courts helped out because they had a lot of findings on appellate cases about her corruption. And Harvard, Yale, Princeton, and Stanford law reviews found her to be the most corrupt DA in the United States of America. And alternative press sources got that information out. So the people just said, oh, wow, some things are going way wrong. And by the way, we don't like your campaign ads. Remember? The guy that beat her was a law professor. He wasn't too deep into the criminal background, but he has handled criminal cases. And she was getting on him because he took the part of the people against inappropriate law enforcement. They got on him because he represented people free of charge, pro bono, from time to time. So the people just said, hey, we like what you are telling us about your opponent. We don't take it as a criticism, we take it as a recommendation. So we have to deal with that kind of thing. So people across the country, take charge of your circumstances. Don't get caught up in the party line mess, because a lot of times that is not good for you, your children, your families, your mom and dad, your aunts and uncles, your grandparents, nor your posterity. Take charge of your circumstances.
Judge, I got actually one more local thing as far as the election. Like I know you always talk about juvenile court. You know, you've been consistent about this corruption down there, and you got your mic muted, Judge. Your mic is muted.
I was puppy sitting, so I was girl.
I see. Okay.
Not bark. All right.
Oh yeah, well, okay, but like
okay.
the juvenile court clerk race with Janine Gordon. She actually used her mom's maiden name. She was actually only married to the man for about 90 days. He got it annulled. The fully loved name, which was not on her intent to run application, but they allowed it on the primary ballot, and then she took it off and she won, and she ran unopposed this last time, but she had some competition in the Democratic primaries. And it sounded like it was highly unethical what she did, because according to the commission, you cannot use any other name that's the one you filed with on the ballot, but they allowed that Fully Love to be on there for the primary. Now she's about to make $20,000 a month, I think, off of that seat.
That's why we have a new DA to investigate such stuff. If there is something inappropriate, it needs to be investigated. And one thing I'd offer to her, and this, you need to watch some of the official places. We found 20 some years ago an illicit sequestered bank account, non-interest bearing bank account, that at that time had $8.2 million in it. It was being used to leverage and finance personal loans, mortgages, campaign finance. It's now rumored to be tens of millions of dollars, and nobody's looked into it, and people ought to go to jail for that. So we saw the list of who got the benefit of that, and that was 22 years ago.
Wow.
And people all across the country ought to look at what's going on behind the scenes that is not good. You see, you don't own the people own themselves. The people are not fodder for your own income. You are there to represent the best interest of the people. In too many places across the country, they either have a social agenda they're trying to push at everybody's expense and cramming it down to people's throats, or they're trying to get enriched, like this inflation thing.
Mm-hmm.
See, if you are above a certain income level, and you are an entrepreneur that has made it, and you are an established business, and you provide a necessity, what you charge to earn your income contributes to what they call the cost of living index. So if you have 10% inflation, let's say, which is enormous, but we're getting close to it, what happens is part of that inflation is generated by the fact that you are charging 10% more for your products or your service, whatever it may be. You don't lose money when there's inflation because your income rises with the inflation. But in order to deal with making what you make, you have a debt load. So as inflation rises, say 4%, 6%, 10%, your debt load is reduced by an identical percent. So if you are above an income level line, you benefit by inflation when it is controlled. Now, that goes with something I got taught in my first year of law school with taxation, which was, if you've got a business client who's got deep pockets, never ever spend your own money, even if you can afford to. Mm-hmm. Always take out a loan. Get term loans. You will have a fixed interest rate, and the interest has to be earned. So what you do is get the term loan, do your business, get your profits, keep money in your own bank earning interest, and then pay off the loans out of your earnings before the interest becomes due. You see, that way you may have a debt load that you would like reduced. So if you've got a $10,000 debt load and there's 6% or 5% influence in inflation, what happens is you will make $10,500 and your debt load will be reduced by $500. So you wind up making a net profit out of the deal, 5% inflation of $1,000 on that 10,000. See how that works?
Okay, I see.
It sounds so good. that's and the other thing is on a national level, it's about the gas pump. You see, the fiction is that the gas pump prices rise because the oil prices rise. That's BS. The oil that has been refined that's now at the pump came in at the price level 13, 14 months ago, last year. Biden's administration has been releasing oil from the U.S. oil reserves. Now, some of that oil was acquired 75, 80, 85 years ago, and it's been in oil reserves. And when they acquired it, it was $6 a barrel, $11.12 a barrel. But they're getting positioned to refine it and sell it at a pump price as though they acquired it at the current market rate for imported oil. Let's look at that. By American law, 25% of all imported oil has to go into the American oil reserves. And by law, $5 premium per barrel over the market price has to be paid to the oil companies for every barrel put into the oil reserves. So right now we are in the cockamamie position of 99.9+% of all domestically consumed oil is imported. So that means there's a surplus over that we can't even use because it's got to go into the oil reserves. And based on that surplus, whatever the market price is for the oil, we as taxpayers have to pay the oil companies a $5 per barrel subsidy.
Wow.
See, this is what mainstream media ought to be reporting on, but they don't. Because nowadays they have a social agenda that they're pushing. They are not into this First Amendment stuff of apprising the public of what's going on and giving them critical, objective reporting to the extent that they can manage, with sometimes very telling and pointed editorials. Every damn thing you get is an editorial, and the news is slanted. It's not accurate. And then look at it with this thing that the UN came up with, the Biden administration supporting it, where they say we must attack this falsity spreading around the world that certain important people are controlling everything, like Soros and company. He's the latest boogeyman, the villain. Baba Yaga, the boogeyman. So what we get is an interesting thing. Are we supposed to push what they say about suppressing inaccurate reporting where it is not allowed? And what happened to our First Amendment? Well, this is America. It can't happen. Well, the Sixth Amendment, now the Article 6 of the Constitution, and not the amendment, Article 6 says, part of the supreme law of the land shall be, amongst other things, treaties that have been ratified by the Senate. We have a treaty with the UN. Article 1, Section 8 says the government has to enforce, quote, the law of nations, unquote. So are we going to get in a situation whereby treaty and how we deal with interpretation of the Constitution, where we're going to get in a position where we can suppress the First Amendment? Remember now, they are for control of what you say if it hurts somebody's feelings. Remember, hate speech? Well, where the hell does the Constitution protect somebody's feelings? It doesn't. Because you may hurt somebody's feelings who's a real low-down son of a bitch who needs to be talked about. What you cannot do under the First Amendment is falsely yell fire in a crowded theater, or do something that's likely to implode by immediate public disorder when it is not true. There's no fire. I mean, that's immediate and basic. You can't utter fighting words if they in fact provoke a combat and breach of the public peace, dignity, and order. And if you defame somebody, you have a civil remedy that says if what you say is not true, the person has an action for defamation of character, either slander because you spoke it or libel because you printed it. But nowhere is the First Amendment supposed to allow the government to say this hurt somebody's feelings, we won't allow this. See, hate speech sounds, oh, we need hate speech protection. Look how they're getting on us. Yeah, but you see, when you do that, you rank out your own First Amendment rights, and in 10 years or so, that same thing you think protects you can be turned around and used against you. And
Right.
remember, I look at it rather I don't approve of it, because what we do, hey man, your mama's so fat, man, she can't get in the bathtub but with 2 drops of water, man. That's why she stinks so bad. Hey man, I won't say nothing, man, but the other night when you was asleep and your old man was at work, I paid your mama a visit, man. I hope you don't mind. You got a new baby brother on the way, man. You know, hell, we did that for amusement. Oh my God, he talked about blah, blah, blah. Oh, damn. What was the thing? My grandparents used to tell me, parents used to tell me, boy, sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you. Thicken up your damn skin. Now these folk are just so damn sissified.
Yeah. I mean, it's the sound of town. I'm actually just speaking of amendments and rights. What happened at Mar-a-Lago on Monday, the raiding of a former president's home by the FBI of all people. This is unprecedented. It happened on the anniversary, I think, of Richard Nixon resigning from the White House years
That
ago.
the Democratic Party in the country is going to deep.
Soon we start talking, and when judge, the powers that be, got to fight the power. The judge, you there?
No, that's not what I'm talking about. See, when you set precedents, they have a way of coming back to bite you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the FBI apparently has some good cause, but now I'll give you a personal anecdote. It was a federal trial I had as defense lawyer back in 1979. I walked my client. It was a woman. She was in her 50s, and she was accused of harboring a federal fugitive, her husband of 29 years. And I got her acquitted. He really wasn't a fugitive. A new employee of the FBI was supposed to have issued a subpoena for him as an eyewitness to a bank robbery up in St. Louis. But she made a mistake, and she had, she drew up an arrest warrant for him. So there was a crucial aspect in the case about the credibility of the FBI witnesses. There were 17 of them, and they all testified about how unruly this woman was. Well, I called a retired senior FBI agent who basically retired because he said, quote, on the witness stand, he was sick of the lying deceit that his agency engaged in. They had testified nothing like this happened, and he said, no, I saw them. They're out there. They're lying if they said that. They tied that woman up with a 20-foot telephone extension cord to a straight back chair and giggled as they kicked her over repeatedly, and the back of her head would slam to the ground. They did that at least 8 or 9 times in my presence. So we are relying on an agency that has gotten way too powerful, that for years and decades had a sick puppy known as J. Edgar Hoover, who had a real problem with his circumstances and used it for authoritarian oppression. So I'm not impressed that the FBI is saying we had cause to go in. And by the way, there is another little stink that's coming out of this, and as a retired judge, I'm very familiar with it. The judge who approved the warrant that allowed this has a deep underlying animosity for boss Trump. And I'm a little surprised. If they didn't get anything out of this, they made one hell of a mistake, because what they're really trying to do is to avert a whole scale ass whipping that's going to occur in these midterms. Now, every time over the last half century that any presidential administration is dropped below a certain approval rating, his party has lost control of whatever chamber of Congress they had control of. Now they have control of the House, and they're essentially tied in the Senate. Well, that's going to change. They will lose the Senate, it looks like, and they're going to get slaughtered in the House. And this is comparable in effect to what happened in 1994 when they came up with that idiot gun control thing, the 94 bill.
Mm-hmm.
And they lost control of the House and Senate to the Republican Party. Well, that's likely to be amplified because, frankly, I'm 75 years old, and this is the most inept, incompetent, and embarrassing administration that's been in the White House in my entire life. And that extends through Truman, Eisenhower, Kennedy, Johnson, Tricky Dick, Nixon, Jerry Ford, Carter, St. Ron, the Reagan, and Bush 1, Clinton, Bush 2, the half breed Kenyan, and Obama, or Sotoro, depending upon which of his official names you use, and the jackass in chief, urban trailer park trash, crook, Joe Biden, and his felonious son, Hunter Biden, crackhead. By the way, there's a national news organization that wants me to be the judge for a mock trial of Hunter Biden with real defense lawyers and prosecutors prosecuting of this mock trial of Hunter Biden that's coming up. So, I mean,
Wow.
I'm always fair and impartial, neutral, and detached professionally, but it ought to be interesting. And you know, they're starting to release some of the stuff on that laptop now that has gotten unpopular, and it's becoming risky to defend a bunch of idiots. It's showing bids on sex slaves held in Europe. It's showing some interesting stuff that is almost treasonous on some White House tapes that fool had on that laptop. And the question goes, suggests itself of what the hell's going on. There's a lot on there that would be evidence relative to, well, Ukraine has a long, long indictment wherein in multiple counts thereof, Hunter Biden and the current president of the United States are listed as defendants. Remember Article 6 of the Constitution, we have a treaty with Ukraine that's ratified to assist in apprehension and extradition of criminal elements. Remember, he got up January, going on 4 years ago on C-SPAN. I heard it, and he bragged about it. Well, perhaps I've engaged in bribery when I threatened to cut off the $14 billion loan guarantees to Ukraine if they didn't back this guy off of my son. They went for it. Well, wow, we whoopee. Well, he's no longer vice president of the United States. But remember what I said about precedent coming back to bite you? They just had to go after Boss Trump the second time and attempt to get him convicted of articles of impeachment after he was no longer president of the United States. Why? Because under the 12th Amendment, he would not be eligible to run for office again. So they wanted to block his future chances. But I told you, I said, man, they need to be careful what they ask for. They might get it, and they did. And I said that sets the precedent for going after somebody for something done in an office he no longer held, Joe Biden. Now, there are three things under Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution that a president and vice president can be impeached and convicted of. 1 is bribery, 2 is treason, and 3 for crimes in office. Now, they impeached Trump for obstructing Congress and for abusing his authority. Well, let's start with the last one. There's no such cognizable crime as abusing your political authority. Either you broke the law or you didn't. And if you're going to charge him with a crime, cite the crime. There is no such crime on the books. So that was dead on arrival with the Senate, who's responsible for the trial. Obstructing Congress? Well, the dumb bunnies assumed that since they are popularly termed congressmen, that was them. But Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution says the United States Congress shall consist of 2 chambers. 1, the House of Representatives, and 2, the Senate. So as soon as it got to the Senate, all they did was, hey, we're overwhelmingly majority Republican. Anybody in here get obstructed? Nope. Well, that was dead on arrival. So they wasted everybody's time. The same thing with the second round. They didn't even state a grounds under Article 2, Section 4. There was no bribery, there was no treason, and there was no criminal offense. Now, treason. Oh, he committed treason. Well, the Constitution of the United States is very specific about what constitutes treason and what it has to consist of and what kind of witnesses and evidence you have to have. They didn't have it. So that's dead on arrival. But the stupid bunnies set the precedent of being able to go after someone for an office they no longer hold. So Joe Biden, wowee whoopee, you are subject to being extradited by treaty to Ukraine. And by the way, did you ever wonder why the damn fool did not take himself over there and sent that other incompetent Miss Word Salad over there? Because he couldn't go. Now, the U.S. would, of course, say, we got bigger guns than you. You're depending on us, and we exercise diplomatic immunity on behalf of our president. You can't keep him. Meanwhile, the thing about sending Pelosi over there into the Asian domain is he can't get over there because the Chinese own him. If you saw some of that stuff on the White House tape that Hunter had on his laptop, there's a scene where Obama is sitting on the front of the desk with his arms folded as he always does. And by the way, body language experts will tell you that's being very defensive. It means you are withdrawing because you're lying or you're withholding something. He's saying, let me get this straight. This is to this Chinese representative, a representative of a large Chinese mega corporation. He's saying, I get 10%. Joe gets 10% and Hunter gets 10%. Well, what are they talking about? It's $100 million cash deposit, cash sum that this guy is in there discussing how he set it up so they can get 10% of it. What is the deal? That's treason that they're talking about. He wants Obama and Biden to order the U.S. Navy to stand down on its aggressive counter patrols against the Navy of the People's Republic of China. And at that point, you get shortly thereafter in military times, all of these admirals and high naval officers complaining about they've been ordered not to do aggressive patrolling. And why is that important? Well, China wants to claim the whole South China Sea as its own private territorial waters because they've got these coral atolls that get within a few feet of the surface, and they build 200-foot square piers or concrete structures on top. They claim that's Chinese territory, and there's a circle around it of 200 miles that they claim. So now they're claiming that the territorial waters of Korea, Vietnam, the west coast of Japan, most of the Philippines, including the massive U.S. naval base there, are all in Chinese territorial waters, so we own the place, we can control it, etc., etc. And the U.S. Navy had been saying basically, F you, how dare you, we will aggressively patrol. Now, thanks to the Obama administration's defunding of certain aspects of the Navy when it came to their ability to do what they're supposed to do, the U.S. Navy and the Air Force issued some white papers last year, and they said, look, if the Chinese decide to invade Taiwan, it's a fait accompli. There's not a damn thing we can do short of going to World War III and start a nuclear exchange. So whoever is president, we strongly suggest that you come up with a face-saving speech because there's nothing we can do. The U.S. Navy cannot prevail in the face of the Chinese Navy and land reinforcing American troops there, Marine nor Army. And the Air Force is saying, hey, you cut back the F-14s under the Obama administration. They're grounded and in warehouses, and we just upgraded them with new avionics, electronics, and new engines. We don't have enough FA-18 Hornets. The F-35 stuff that we have, it doesn't exactly work like it's supposed to. And the Chinese have hacked the computer system so they can ground them. And you've got us operating destroyers that came online starting in 1982, which is 40 years ago, and some missile cruisers that came online back 1974. So, hey, what the hell are you doing to us? That's 48 years ago. So what are we supposed to do when they have all this upgraded equipment? The Obama administration cut down the F-22 production line. We don't even have an operational wing of those things. And the Chinese have 1,200 of their first line comparable fighters. And to show you how good they are, as an ally, we invite India to participate in Red Flag and Top Gun. They use the same SU fighter plane, Sequoia,
Mm-hmm.
and they've either won or tied first place in the Top Gun Red Flag composition most of the time over the last decade. So where does that leave us? An ass whipping.
Mm. All right, Joe, I got to ask you too about Trump just got interviewed by the New York State Attorney General office today. He invoked the Fifth Amendment.
Yeah, he
Um,
should.
yeah, but why is all this scrutiny on? I mean, like, shouldn't Biden, like all the stuff you laid out over the last 10 minutes, shouldn't Biden get a lot of more scrutiny than Trump right now since he is in the
Yes,
office?
yes, he should. But you see, we have allowed the imposition of fascist methodology into the American system. There's always been a temptation, but because it wasn't somebody preaching right wing authoritarianism, but a certain type of sexual or, well, instruction to children and a certain worldview, it was overlooked and approved because now we're into no one should be made to feel uncomfortable. We can't have hate speech. We can't make anybody feel bad. We can't shame. Well, the same fascist methodology that the right wing used to be about or think about is now being implemented. So that's what's running in here with why they're going after Trump. Now,
Mhm.
I always told my clients, hey, man, take the fifth. Don't try to explain yourself away. Well, what about somebody? Forget what somebody thinks. It doesn't count. What counts is what they can use in evidence that you give to them as evidence. Remember, anything you say can and may be used in evidence against you. You have a right to remain silent. So, what the hell is wrong with a citizen of the United States? Trump is a citizen, former president, chief executive, What the hell's wrong with him exercising the rights that everybody has? Not a damn thing, except we've got mainstream media trying to play the tabloid thing and make it look like somehow or another it's circumspect. And by the way, that crap like they have with this January 6th committee is absolutely ridiculous, because the only way anything can come out of it is for a U.S. district attorney to get a grand jury to indict somebody. Congress can't do anything about it. But they're having a showpiece thing to keep their asses from being whipped so badly in the upcoming midterms. So what they also have a danger of, we saw back when they tried to run this inept series of hearings about Ollie North back in the 80s. They got convictions, but the convictions got thrown out because they violated his rights when it came to Fifth Amendment considerations. So once again, they're off on their self-righteous high horses. And they're saying, oh, wow, whoopee. We have to get to the bottom of this. We're going to use the FBI that has a long history of inappropriate use. The FBI came into existence back before World War I, when their founding purpose was to do something about this Negro, Jack Johnson, who was world heavyweight champion, that liked to hang around with white women. So they wound up getting the Mann Act, and you saw what happened with R. Kelly with the Mann Act, about transporting women across state lines for illicit purposes. So Jack Johnson was actually married to this particular white woman, and they were going on a trip to Europe. So they had to pass through Georgia for 15 minutes of train ride. Now, Georgia at the time did not allow interracial marriage. So by their standards, he had committed a crime. So as soon as they got through to the last stop in the state, federal agents get on board the train and arrest him for what they arrested him for. He gets convicted, he escapes, goes to Europe, where he is prospering. And his mama is I got to see you, baby, before it's too late. Please come back. He tried to sneak back in, got caught, flattened his sentence, and he got killed in a car wreck in 1946. Now, interestingly enough, the half-breed boy, Obama, would not pardon him, but Trump did. And you have to understand, a lot of people don't get it. To my parents, my grandparents, Jack Johnson was Muhammad Ali. He whipped everybody and thumbed his nose at the racist or those who were wrong. So he was a hero. That's what I always heard. So the black president wouldn't do a damn thing about it, but the bad guy, the mean tweeter type, he pardoned the man.
That's so good. Trump's like, Barack seems like he's afraid of his own shadow. He just can't stand anything too black. But I want to ask you, speaking of Just Us, your take on the fact that another grand jury in Mississippi could not bring an indictment against Carolyn Bryant Dunham. I guess that's the last one.
Let me talk about that. The elected district attorney in question is a black man.
Yeah, Dwayne Richards. Yeah.
The district wherein the grand jury was located, where they live. Think about it. Electing a black DA, you aren't exactly in a minority situation in that county in Mississippi, and there were black folk on that grand jury. They didn't do anything. But look at what happened with Breonna Taylor, where the feds are trying to get the Democrats are trying to get a few brownie points with black folk by implementing prosecution on the federal level against 3 of the white cops involved in the Breonna Taylor thing after they got acquitted. Now, if you can go after Breonna Taylor's people involved on that, why the hell don't you go after the person who is directly the cause of Emmett Till dying? And see, Brianna Taylor was just sound asleep.
Right.
Brianna Taylor had got a problem where she let a thug use her address and phone number.
Mm-hmm.
She had another boyfriend there. The boyfriend, when the door came open, he acted under the castle doctrine and he fired shots. A shot at the police. He didn't hit anybody. They shot back at him. Fortunately, they didn't hit him, but the bullets went through the wall and killed sleeping Brianna Taylor.
Right.
Now, did you see that brother get prosecuted? No. The law was fairly applied to him under the castle doctrine. And a whole lot of woke black folk talk about castle doctrine isn't for black folk. There's a refutation right there. Now, there's all kinds of negligence, gross and culpable on the departmental level. But you're trying to scapegoat somebody here. I mean, they may find something on him, but if you're willing to go after these three now federally after they got acquitted on the state level, what the hell is your excuse for not going after this woman for getting Emmett Till killed? Remember Medgar Evers?
Right.
Old white guy finally got put in prison, for killing Medgar Evers after he had escaped for decades. And this is in where? Mississippi.
I mean, you got a lot of. I mean, look, you got something that happened I want to say 5 years before Emmett Till in Attala County, Mississippi, back in 1950, where a black family was nearly massacred by a white man, a raving lunatic white man, and them white people, them white male jury sent him to prison for life, where he died some 19 years later in prison. And this guy almost killed a whole black family in the same county where Oprah Winfrey was born. But we don't talk about stuff like a year before Emmett Till, you had a black man in Mississippi killed 3 white men, including a sheriff's deputy, and never stood trial and was not lynched because the white part of his family intervened because he was named after one of the governors of Mississippi. His name was Eddie Knoll. He was a crack shot. That man could shoot a gun like nobody business. He used to shoot like cigarettes and matches out of his wife's mouth and combs out her hair. But they don't talk about those stories. Why we don't talk about that? You don't know about Eddie Knoll, but you know about Emmett Till that happened the next year. You don't know about the Attala County massacre where the white dude actually went to prison for life. All white male jury.
You're worried about negligence rather than culpable murder.
Yeah.
And Brianna Taylor, rest her soul, but what the hell about Emmett Till?
I mean, they keep on saying it's so much evidence. She even contradicts herself. I mean, even an FBI investigator who talked to her back in the 2000s, he said there's enough new evidence now to get her indicted.
Well, look at this. Bill Cosby isn't much younger, but look what they did with.
And he's legally blind. They said she blind and he got health problems.
He's legally blind.
And in his 80s too.
They went after him, and they are upset about the fact that justice got done. And you see, you have that judge who delayed 6 months in filing his necessary report so he could get in, and they ran by Dr. Cosby. Look, if you confess to doing this or admit it, we'll let you out on early parole. But he said, hell no. And I talked to him. No, I'm not going to admit to something I didn't do. So he went on appeal. Why did he went on appeal? Because we had a corrupt DA, just like we had in Memphis, just like we have so many other places in America, where the deal is they want to bend corners for a social agenda and to hell with justice and corrupt it for decades to come for our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and ourselves. The Fifth Amendment, I guess they didn't think about, because the DA said he has no liability for prosecution. There will be none. So the civil judge said, you have to give a deposition. And your Fifth Amendment claim no longer has effect since you are not subject to prosecution. Well, the new ass that got to office, who ought to be jacked up by the Bar Association for misconduct, decides to make an agenda call and say, we are not bound by my predecessor we are going to prosecute him and use what got produced when he was induced to give contra Fifth Amendment testimony at a deposition. See, it's crazy. You can't do that. And these clowns that are going, yay, yay, it advances our cause. Be careful what you ask for, fool. You just might get it.
Yeah, because it was like there's 4 cops in Breonna Taylor case. Then you had the George Floyd situation where they got those cops as well too. They off the prison as well. And then what's your take on? Yeah,
why not this woman?
I agree because
Cosby was blind. She's blind. There's really little difference in age.
And she could get free medical care in prison,
Here
like Martina
says,
Byron said.
so what? She will get out of free medical. She will get free medical care in jail. Well, that's a consideration. You might be doing her a charity, but you know.
I mean, she should die in prison, Judge. She should die. She
That's
should die
right.
dishonorable. A dishonorable death. That's what she deserves. Because she lived a full life of this crap. She lived her life.
A full life. So
yeah, married 3 times, got great grandchildren.
And see, Emmett Till, unlike so many of the folk that we're holding up as poster children for us getting done wrong,
right?
I was anxious to get that edition of Look magazine that my parents subscribed to so I could read what they told Look magazine after they got paid.
Mm-hmm.
And they talked about the Negro boy was disrespectful. He told us what we could do with ourselves even when we was beating on him. And we just decided to go ahead and kill him because he was a uppity Negro, etc. So I said, this young 14-year-old black boy stood up and acted like a man and said, F you, you racist dogs, to hell with you. And that's what they basically said he did, so they killed him. And, you know, the people we hold up as poster children, why did he get shot? Well, he ran from the police. Why did they shoot him when he was running? Well, let's back up. Why did he run from the police? Was he trying to do a getaway? No, he was scared. This 14-year-old boy wasn't scared. Okay, why did he do this? He was scared. This 14-year-old boy stood up and acted like he had cast iron balls. And you forget him? Oh, hell no. Was he a junkie and he got jacked up because no, he was a brave 14-year-old boy. Was he somebody that was mentally ill and got jacked up? No, he was a normal, healthy, brave young 14-year-old black kid. Now, why the hell are we not making him a hero and we lie about it when we got a gay rights bill that we got, well, not we, but they got through under the guise of being the anti-lynch bill. And I talked to Emmett Till's mother for about 9 or 10 hours on 2 occasions. Personally talked to her. And I talked to the family biographer who was identified as such to me by Emmett Till's mama and stepfather years ago. And both of them said it wasn't a lynching, it was a murder. So why isn't this Carolyn woman in a penitentiary right now, or at least awaiting trial? Well, she will get benevolent health care courtesy of the federal government. That's and right. She can die in the penitentiary where she belongs.
Well, Judge, okay, I gotta ask you about the Ahmaud Arbery thing. Well, they sent their father and son team to life, and they're gonna spend the rest of their days in prison.
Yeah.
So, what's your take on that?
And that's in Georgia. And by the way, where do you think Stone Mountain, Georgia is located?
Outside Atlanta, right?
County.
That's right.
And also, speaking of which, Cobb County, Georgia, which extends into metropolitan Atlanta, has some of the worst endemic racism apparent in the country when it comes to where black children and black parents are treated by that system, where guardian ad litems, custody evaluators, they are allowed to enrich themselves at the expense of black folk. And hell, they get more money for being, say, a guardian ad litem than the person's attorney does. And don't walk in there where you a black guy and the mama's a white woman, or a black woman and the daddy is a white guy. You are screwed and the children are screwed. There are all kinds of horror stories out of that. But nobody does your damn thing. So maybe the criminal justice system needs to be extended to looking at their own civil system. That happens.
Well,
I know
Judge.
years ago when I was practicing criminal law, if you wanted a habeas corpus heard fairly, you could pick any judge in the county. Never pick a criminal court judge back then, because with one or two exceptions, you weren't going to get a fair deal. You would always go pick a civil judge, because the civil judges had more life experience and tended to have more balls than the criminal court judges at the time. This is 40 some years ago. And you'd get fairness and justice. Now it's evened up. And I think we may have more black civil judges than we do white ones for the first time. And I know we have damn near as many women as we do men sitting on the bench after, well, will be sitting after this election. So it's some interesting changes.
I mean, Judge, it's definitely. I mean, it's a lot of things going on, like pros and cons and yin and yang. But when I ask you this, so if they're gonna have sympathy on Carolyn Bryant, have sympathy on Nicole Linton too, who basically killed 6 people, including a whole family, a pregnant woman, a whole family with her car as a weapon. Why she got to stay in jail and face charges? If Carolyn Bryant could get off, why not her? You know what I'm talking about, Judge. This is your hometown. This woman ran through a red light going 100 miles per hour, killed a whole bunch of people, including a pregnant woman, her almost 1-year-old child, and her boyfriend. 6 people killed in all. She got $9 million bail that she ain't gonna be able to post or bond, whatever. She's staying in prison. Why not let her out, Judge? Why not show her some compassion?
Well, now you asked some interesting questions. Let me give you, well, no, it is what it is. Competence. We've got a criminal court judge on the bench right now who, as a defense lawyer, had an interesting case. I understand she's a judge, but at this time she was a defense lawyer. Her client had a seizure and hit and killed 4 people in a crosswalk.
Okay.
Well, acting as a big dummy and incompetent, this woman said, "Oh, wow, my client has blackouts all the time. It isn't her fault." Well, you damn fool, you just confessed your client to criminally negligent homicide. Guaranteed case. So, to rescue this situation, the late, very good black defense lawyer named Sam Perkins had to intervene and salvage this. So, they were trying to go after the woman for murder, but he wound up getting the least penalty he could for his client, who, thanks to this ineptitude by her first private defense lawyer, who's now a criminal court judge, had implicated her in criminally negligent homicide. And until her lawyer did that, the state didn't have a case against her. See, in other words, if you black out and a tragedy occurs, it's not your fault. If you've blacked out before and keep putting yourself into circumstances where you are liable to black out again, then it is your fault. So, see, just because somebody's on the criminal bench doesn't mean they know what the hell they're doing. One judge who's still down there, I don't know, I'll have to check to see if he got turned out, is about one of the dumbest bunnies I've ever met in my life. Just
But
stupid.
yeah, with this woman though, the story is that she got into it with her boyfriend and
Yeah, I
got
know,
drunk.
but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
well, obviously, see, that becomes malicious and intentional. It's a good first degree murder case. And there are aggravators that suggest themselves that might, if the state or the jurisdiction in question still has the death penalty, might merit the imposition of the death penalty.
Wow. So that's wow. I mean, as it said, I just man, and she's a nurse of all people. She's supposed to be taking care of sick people, not making them sick or
Yeah,
killing them.
well, uh, Brother Hurt, look what we've been postulating and promoting for 50 years. It's all about your emotions and your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And toward the end of my career on the bench, and a lot when I had that binding arbitration thing on TV for 15 years, why'd you do it, young man? I was emotional. Why'd you do it, young lady? I was emotional. Excuse me. Why did you do it? But I said I was emotional. Why did you do it? That's no excuse. Everybody has emotions, but didn't anybody tell you to control them? I thought it was all right to express yourself.
Mm.
No.
I just man, we do need some man up programs, like you said, Judge. It's just some good, just common sense, basic common sense training. And I just like this Judge. I saw the video what happened last week. It just disturbs me. What happened? And you look at this woman, she doesn't look like a monster, and everybody got their ups and downs and demons, but I just it's hard to really stand in defense of her right now,
Yeah, I
considering the
mean,
damage that was done.
she's presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, but there is a thing called probable cause, and the offenses with which she are charged in the circumstances, you know, this is one of those things where we need to go to trial.
Mm,
And if the allegations are substantiated that she had a vendetta or a hate going against her boyfriend, and she was driving 100 miles an hour and intentionally ran through a crosswalk, or angry and driving 100 miles an hour in an urban situation on a city street, then you've got some things that, if there's probable cause to hold the person to the action of a grand jury or subsequently to trial, then you need to have the trial or work whatever you work out.
yeah, I just just some things you just can't. I mean, hopefully, the truth will come out about what happened. But like they said, they gave a lot of medication at the scene, so they don't know how inebriated she was, but evidently something was going on for her to drive that
Well, yeah.
fast. Yeah.
See, the thing about driving while impaired has got to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt.
Mm-hmm.
She's entitled to her proof. There are some rules that I'm very familiar with when it comes to taking blood alcohol samples, under what circumstances, how long after the events the samples were taken, and some physiological realities. Now, see, personally, I was the first black prosecutor for the city of Memphis. So they tried to pigeonhole me.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a long time ago. And they put me over the prosecution for this special federally funded court that handled primarily DUI matters. So I helped write the book and the protocols about DUI. And in fact, I think still 38 states use those protocols 5 decades later. So it is what it is. So DUI, driving while under the influence of an intoxicant and or drug, the way it usually is stipulated, can be interesting when you get down to what is required for proof. Now, there were 4 times I got partially reversed.
Mm-hmm.
One of those times was for a young man in the Memphis area who, over a 3-day period, was involved in 4 sequential DUIs and killed several people.
Okay. Wow.
Well, when it was ultimately disposed of, I ran the time consecutive. In other words, running wild. Well, the Supreme Court said that they considered it part of the same misadventure. In other words, a continuous drunk, let alone he went and got new cars in each, well, replacement cars in each instance. So they ran the time concurrent rather than running wild or consecutive. Now, I don't have a problem with people drinking. Don't drive when you're impaired. I wouldn't suggest it. You go to some place and you have a reason you want to get really inebriated and you're not doing it at your house, either have a designated driver, call a cab or an Uber, have a limo, or have a room. Now, I
Right.
got in some trouble because I was broken up with my wife and I got full of it, but I had a room. I had a right to be knocked up that way.
Right.
Uh, but
Got
some
turn up, good. You
asshole
got turn
punk
up.
black folk were trying to make money off of social media, so
Right.
they videoed me. But you know, the Romans have a phrase called "in vino veritas," or "in wine there is truth." And I told these young gals, I said, "Hey, you look pretty. My sons might be interested in you, but I have a beautiful wife. You know,
Right.
we're on the outs, but she's still fine." And I showed a picture. And what I talked about was the corruption in the justice system and how Hollywood was contributing to the problem.
That's right. You know
So
it
I
does.
didn't think bad, at least, you know. So I was drunk. Hell, I wasn't driving. I wasn't even, I was being put up, and it was at the Roosevelt Hotel. I told the people who were running this game show, I said, I don't want to be there. They
Uh
got some low-lifted clowns up in the place. Well, it'll be all right. I said, no, it's not. Soon, sure enough, there you go.
Is it haunted too, Judge? Like one of them haunted places in Hollywood, the Roosevelt
Yeah,
Hotel.
yeah, the Roosevelt Hotel.
So
So, I
there
mean,
was no no Earl Flynn that got to hold your body right possession.
I mean, I wasn't falling down drunk, but I
Uh-huh.
mean, I just broken up with my beautiful wife of a long time. I wasn't feeling good, so I said, "Hell, I'm sitting in this motel by myself. Hell,
Yes, sir.
no point not. Why not? On somebody else's tab. Hell." So while we whoopee.
I gotta ask you. You spoke of Hollywood and getting lit. You remember like Anne Hesh, the Ellen DeGeneres ex-wife, I guess, or partner. She got drunk and almost killed herself and some people last week as well. Have you heard about that? I think she's allegedly in a coma now in the hospital.
Yeah, well, that's still pending. So I hadn't paid much attention. I don't like Ellen DeGeneres, a degenerate. She and her ex tried to, she and her wife tried to hit on my ex one time up in the town I was living in, Ojai, California. So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like that. And on one occasion, they asked me, it was KNBC 4 in New York, which at the time was the country's largest broadcast station. And I was doing 6.2, 5.8 in the ratings every week, and she was getting 0.21, 0.34, and they were getting ready to cancel the show. Well, she came on right after me, and they thought it was an embarrassment to the station that her ratings were falling off so badly. So she didn't. They asked me to do them a favor since she was taping in L.A. at the time. Would I be so kind as to agree to appear on her show for a couple of days so the ratings wouldn't fall off so badly? So I agreed. I went by there and man, she was rude. She was nasty with everybody. She mistreated the people who worked there. She had the air conditioning turned off. It was 80 damn degrees up in the place. And, you know, it's hot as hell. So I got this
Mm-hmm.
judicial bat cape over one arm. She said, "Why do you still have it off?" I said, are you being funny or are you asking me to put it on? I'm telling you. I said, well, I'm not hearing. So anyway, after a while, I thought I was supposed to come out. I put it on, didn't have a zipper. Didn't I tell you to zip that? Get ready. I said, are you trying to be humorous? And one of the people who was a cameraman, union cameraman, who was also occasionally on my show doing, said, Judge, she's always like that. She's a real bitch. So she came at me again. I said, you know what? F yourself. I'm out of here. Come on, guys. Let's go. Judge, please. No, hell no. I'm not up in here. And everything they busted her on last year about mistreating people on her show and whatever, hell, I saw that years ago, and I just said, I'm out of here. So KNBC4 called me when I'm down the street in the limo, and they said, please come back. So I went on in there, and the conversation was going, F you, fool. No, hell with no. You talk to me better. You don't ask me to do a damn thing like it. Speak to me like you got some sense. Say, I don't even like you. I don't even know who the hell you are, except you aren't funny. Is this supposed to be a comedy show? So anyway, I was going at it like that. And subsequent to that is when she tried to hit on my wife. Her and her wife, they wanted to do a threesome.
Oh, wow.
So my wife said, what the hell's wrong with you? I'm straight.
That's crazy, Judge. And also, I got to ask you.
A restaurant that was famous in the area for serving country food and breakfast. Pretty good food, but it was what it was.
Wow. I also want to ask you, I guess, something local, but the changing of the federal building downtown from Clifford Davis to Odell Horton. I didn't know that Clifford Davis was a suspect Klansman. I didn't know he was in the KKK. According to some stuff I read, allegedly.
When Odell Horton was a black judge, I knew him personally. He was okay, but I thought he could have done more for the cause. And some of the rulings I thought that he made were demonstrations of kowtowing to the federal prosecution.
Okay.
He's the one, by the way, that ruled that the government couldn't get a fair trial of Harold Ford Sr. in Memphis and ordered that the jury be brought in from out of state. He seemed confused because we were looking at the jury and we said there are 10 black people on the jury and 2 white people, so the verdict is going to be 10-2. It'll be a hung jury, 2 white folk and 10 black folk on opposite sides, and it came back that way. He was so unsophisticated about the realities of the world that he didn't realize anybody could call it, so he said there must have been an illicit communication from the jury to the spectators. No, we could just see what we were looking at in the jury box. But he still got acquitted, and to show you how dumbass the feds can get sometimes, is one of the things they were holding against Congressman Ford Sr. was that he supposedly took a bribe in the form of a promise that they would name a bridge after him. So when they identified the bridge, it was the one immediately north of the pyramid that runs over the Mud Island. So everybody started laughing, and Horton wanted to know what the laughter was about. And he didn't learn until later that the laughter was because everybody knew that that was the A.W. Willis Bridge, a brave black attorney who helped get the pictures, the rolls of film that old man Withers took of Till's body that A.W. Willis and Russell Sugarman smuggled out of Mississippi to get developed at Walgreens up in Illinois and to the Illinois governor so he could demand Till's body be sent back to Illinois. So, yeah, everybody laughed, said, oh, fool, what's wrong with you? That's the A.W. Willis Bridge, not the Ford Bridge. And when it came out, he was like, huh? It is named after you. No, it's not. It's the A.W. Willis Bridge, not the Harold Ford Bridge. Your Honor, And they didn't even realize that was the case. So that shows you just because you are with somebody doesn't mean you have credibility or you're on your game.
It's like some Gomer Powell, Barney Fife stuff.
Yes.
Rest in peace, Judge
Yeah.
Odell Horton.
And in one case I had, it was involving what at the time was the largest black real estate agent in Tennessee, our developer. And they were going after him to scapegoat him because he blew the whistle on the Reagan administration and some corruption in HUD. So their principal witness was supposed to be some illiterate black man who dropped out of the second grade and was bamboozled into this real estate dealing where he was supposed to have had the down payment of $250 provided to him by my client on behalf of certain others. Now, there were 6 other people, all white, who got indicted. The U.S. attorney dismissed the charges against them and wanted to proceed against my client. Well, guess what? It turned out that their victim, second grade dropout, had an MBA from Virginia Union University. He had bought his first house at 19 years old by lying about his age. He had a contract with the Memphis Board of Education to provide the janitorial services for 6 elementary schools. 1 hour before the transaction, he went down and got the $250 out of the teachers' credit union. And he had 152 houses that he had bought through bogus corporations that had a Section 8 tenant occupant. And in each instance, he did not pay any mortgage payments, and he would go 14, 18, 22 months collecting the Section 8 checks for rental subsidies from them, and then let the corporate entity get foreclosed on, create a new corporation, take out 67, and they knew this fraud was their chief witness, but they concealed it until we discovered it. And by the way, the judge wouldn't let it in. It wasn't Horton, but it was another judge. He wouldn't let it in that this man had gotten $250 out of his credit union account. And the canceled check came back showing that it was from the credit union that he had used. The jury was allowed to infer that my client was the one that put the $250 up instead of the check he got from the credit union. See, that's how ridiculous it gets. And how did that come to pass? Because the current occupant of the White House, Joe Biden, John B. Stennis, and Byrd, and a few others with the 1977, 79, 81, 87 crime control. Well, 87 didn't apply because that was after this trial. They set this up so that that kind of travesty could occur.
Well, Judge, I also, man, people be watching this show. I just want to give a shout out to some other people. I know we talked about Corian Evans last week, who saved those people, those teenage girls, and police officer out of the river down there in Mississippi. But also, I was contacted by somebody who seen us talking, heaping praises on Corian, and this person let me know that it was 2 brothers as well, Karan and Caleb Bradley, who also was in the water, that actually helped save the police officer and the other girls as well too. And they have not been getting any notice in the media until recently. So I just want to celebrate that not only one black male did
Shout out.
Yeah, it was 3 of them. It was 3, and they all look alike, and that's the issue because they actually left the scene before they gave their statement to the authorities,
Give
so
them
they didn't
their
get the
props.
credit. Yeah.
Bravery is a manly thing, and too much has gone through the gutter these days about trying to diminish manhood. See, that's what it's all about. And they're trying to turn brave young lads like this into sissified little punks who run scared, twittering and shrieking.
Yeah, because my understanding, one of the brothers actually encouraged Corian to jump in and help save these people's lives because that river dumps into the Gulf of Mexico, so they only had so much time to get people out. Because I think one of the brothers was actually responsible for pulling the cop out.
That's heroics, where you risk your life to do something that you ought to do. But nowadays, oh, I was scared. I ran from the police.
So also I want to also encourage people to donate to their GoFundMe, because one of the guys just graduated from high school. So it was always good. They can always turn down our kids, especially our young black boys or males in the media, to get these type of stories out there to the people. So please support young black men like this, because we need more of them for our young black daughters out there. You know, these are the men who's going to start the families of the future. So those are the girls that were saved from drowning, and that's their GoFundMe if y'all want to give to that as well. But Judge, I ain't gonna hold you too longer, man. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and we're gonna promote also your barbecue sauce. How's that doing? How's the sales of the
Well,
barbecue sauce?
two things. I'm into providing service and sauce. The sauce is Judge Joe Brown Barbecue, JJB, Judge Joe Brown Barbecue, BBQ. So that's JJB, bbq.com, and order yourself some. Don't put in www dot. You won't get it. Just
Yeah, I
put
have the problem. They changed it up now.
bbq.com and get the sauce. It's the best stuff you have ever bought. Unless you got a grandfather or an uncle or somebody who knows how to put together some sauce, okay? And then even it would beat most of that. We have our recipes. And I'm also into service, where you get JJB for mayor of Memphis, Tennessee in 2023. Send Brown downtown.
I'm definitely. I mean, I'm jumping at the bit. Actually, people be blowing up my phone, my text messages to me. What kind of sign up to work for Judge Joe Brown's campaign to get them in City Hall? Because we need a change. Change need to been come. Should have been came to Memphis, Tennessee.
Yeah. And a vote for me is a vote for yourself, because I'm bringing it back to the people. It will be a government for the people and by the people. And I want to involve the citizens and stuff. And we aren't having this little in-crowd set of experts who got chosen by Leadership Memphis. I'm going to bring in people chosen by the people.
That's right. That's right, sir. Thank you so much, Judge. Always honored to have you on. Also, Judge, are you familiar with somebody in the chat said there's a Man Up barber shop in Southern California? Are you familiar with that?
No, but I've been doing Man Up, started in Los Angeles in 1968. I, along with the late Dr. Clifford Stewart, Grandmaster martial artist, and the late Dr. Ron Chappelle, a Grandmaster martial artist, we ran Trinity Avenue Elementary School, and we set up a radio station there, and I was the DJ. So I started talking about Man Up way back then. Two of our more famous or notorious graduates from that playground, one, the late Barry White, the singer, was a skinny little 12-year-old when I was playground director, and the other one was a 14-year-old kid who was the last person executed on California's death row. That was Tookie Williams. Now, interesting experience, but we talked about Man Up then. When I used to be on the bench, criminal bench, I talk about Man Up, and for 15 years on that national show, I said Man Up. So go run with it. I'm sure I'm not the first that came up with it. I think I popularized it, but if they have a barbershop called Man Up, yes, because we need to get these boys in a masculine barbershop instead of sitting up with their mamas in a hairdressers while all of these girls are getting their nails and toes painted and getting primped up, fried, dyed, and laid to the side. They need to see the manly side. And they need to stop putting all these braids in their boys' hair, cut their hair, or let them grow afros and teach them how to brush their hair, brush their teeth, and prep into learning how to shave so you don't get razor bumps all over your face. Now, we need them to listen to some manly conversations instead of hen talk while the girls are in the chairs and talking that girl stuff. Some things
Right.
need to be left with the girls and some things need to be with the boys. And after it gets to the point where the boy can sit by himself in a barbershop, take him to sit by himself in the barbershop. Don't have him sitting up there under your skirts while you're getting fried, dyed, and laid to the side.
Yes, sir, Judge Joe Brown. We appreciate you so much. Somebody said, do you know about Judge Lanier from Shelby County? Are you familiar with that judge?
What happened?
I don't know. They just asked in the chat. They asked the judge to tell us about Judge Lanier from Shelby County.
Well, let's say this. I haven't practiced law in more than 30 years, other than an abortive thing dealing with those racist dogs down at juvenile court here.
Right.
And I retired from being a criminal court judge 22 years ago. These people are those who came after me. And a lot of them had just gotten out of law school back when. A lot of them were just such rank rookies that, you know, I wasn't about to pay much attention to them until they paid their dues and did what they did. So I don't really know much about this guy.
Okay, he said he was in the 90s, but okay, I'll let that pass. I mean, like I said, I didn't know too many judges on that ballot.
Well, in the 90s, I wasn't practicing law. I was presiding.
Okay. Okay,
I wouldn't have dealt with him, you know. Most of the people I had to deal with that practice in front of so I could give an opinion about them, they're dead now.
Oh, yeah. So you soul surviving. Also, you just, you know, you got all the wisdom. So Judge, thank you so much for taking the time to impart that. Somebody asked you, what's your take on female TV judges? You have any take on them? You have any issues?
Let me just say this. Most of them have never actually been judges. Some of them have been lawyers.
Okay.
And the other point is they tend to want them young and pretty, which obviates this thing, not all of them, but some of them. It obviates this thing of experience and wisdom, wise and experienced and learned in the practice of law and wise in the ways of the world. So when you haven't been out of law school but 4 or 5 years, 3 or 4 years, and you don't have any grown children or growing up children, you don't have mortgages and bills and everything you had to pay, you don't have a long laundry list of clients with various and sundry problems that you've had to deal with, adjust, and advise on. You know, too often it gets into what's scripted out, what gets done. You know, they jump up and run, take a recess before they come back with their decisions and go back in the green room and they consult with this, that, and the other more experienced lawyers on staff as to what to do, or worse still, to consult with the 20-something-year-old assistant producers who have an idea of what is to be done to boost ratings. And a lot of times, what they're reading or what you're hearing has been written up quite a few days before the hearing occurs, and all they're doing is parroting their notes. See, I actually had a hearing. I used to drive those producers crazy because I'd say, no, I'm not finishing up in 7 to 10 minutes. Hell, this person has a real issue. They wanted a real resolution. I don't care if your ass sits around here for an hour and a half. We're going to do it. By the way, your ass ain't high enough on the food chain to fire me, so go F off.
Hello, Judge. You were one of a kind, man. Ain't nobody like you. Most interesting man in the world, for real, for real. Thank you so much for spending time with us.
You know, what can I say? That wasn't my beer, but hell, I used to like the commercial.
But you got the sauce, boss. You got that barbecue sauce, that JJB.
And I'm out of here. I find got to go. This has been Judge Joe. I'm the one that ran, so get me when you can.
Sign out. Thank you, Judge. We love you madly. Thank you so much. And thank everybody for tuning in to tune out with Brother Ron. This is We All Be News Free Dixie for the 21st century. Thank y'all so much. Judge, always good to hear from the brother. Always consistent. Let's send Brown downtown in 2023. So we like the words from Brother Herb. Please spread the word. Or from my guest, We All Be TV on YouTube. If you my favorite nation is a Do Nation. So you feel free if it moves you. Cash App $ R2C2H2. That's Cash App $ R2C2H2. You can Google Pay, PayPal, and Zelle your support at R2C2H2 at gmail.com. You can buy Artemis Art to wear. This is my in Robert Johnson, not in Robert F. Williams We Trust shirt. Robert F. Williams, Radio Free Dixie, one of our righteous ancestors. Go below the description box here on YouTube. Access our official Teespring store to get our latest t-shirts, or you can hang up Artemis Art, R2C2H2.com. That's R2C2H2.com. Judge thoroughly enjoyed himself. That was a good interview! Exclamation point. That means a lot to me that Judge thought it was a good interview. I hope y'all pretty much dig this as well, because it's all about you. And let me read this. Let me see. Read a disclaimer. Because there's so much to talk about. I'm glad I'm on the air. Sometimes I don't feel like going on, but when I get on, it is hard for me to get off the air because I really actually do enjoy it. I don't know. Sometimes I be in a rut, it seems, but whatever. It's just life. Disclaimer: the views expressed by host and guests on the We All Be TV platform are not the official views, opinions, beliefs, or perspectives of We All Be News or the We All Be Group Incorporated. We All Be News is an organization that thoroughly believes in supplementing the information narrative that is usually supplied by the corporate news entities with those viewpoints and expressions which may be marginalized or ignored for a plethora of reasons. We are about informing the general public on alternative perspectives as it relates to news and information, and letting the general public be the ultimate judge in deciding on how to use said information. Informed citizens are responsible citizens. Thank you for your support, and thank everybody. Moderators, I think y'all still out there doing your jobs. The people who just took the time to tune out, to tune in, to get in where you fit in. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. And thank you all for supporting this. Super chat your support, donate later, buy whatever, spread the word. We appreciate you so much. Now, my last, without the A's, like a herd of cattle. Thank you. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. My favorite people here. Hey, I know. Actually, Judge had a chance to interact with Brandon at the Chuckles thing, so it was cool. Thank y'all for tuning in. Thank you, Sister Betty, for always your support and love. We love you madly. We still could be from the same plantation, though. You know how we do it. We all just kissing cousins, and that's another story in and of itself. So y'all take care of yourself. Be kind, be lovable, be forgivable, but practice those traits on yourself first and foremost. Please do. Catch the replay. We love you madly. Y'all take care. We are out of here. We are out of here because we all be in it to win it. One, love. Okay, we got it. Send Brown downtown.